Welcome back again. We are going to do CYSA practice quiz. CYSA practice questions. If you haven't seen the video before, we do 5 questions. We're going to do 5 questions that have to do specifically with CYSA. I was asked by somebody, are these questions on the exam? And no, these are practice questions, right? They take inspiration from the exam. I don't go to the exam and start memorizing their questions and then put them out here on YouTube. That would be unethical and a violation of the agreement that I signed when I got my certification. So definitely not something that we would expect to see. These are generated questions that allow us to go through and take inspiration from the exam, but it is not the real exam questions. So no, the answer is absolutely not. That is not something we do. I don't think you would see anybody on YouTube or any other platform that had done this for a living do that. I feel like all of us would be like, look down upon that person for doing that. And they would probably lose their certification, and CompTIA would probably go after them, which they should. They should, honestly, right? Because here's the thing, right? When you violate the exam, when you cheat on the exam, when you do something unethical with the exam, you're not only shorting yourself, because let's be honest here, you didn't actually deserve the certification in the first place. You're shorting everybody else that has the exam as well, because you're lowering the I can't even think of it. The inspiration? No, it's not inspiration. I cannot believe that I can't think. The reputation of the exam itself, of the certification. And if the reputation is going down, then the certification isn't as valuable, and that is a problem, right? And so, no, I don't take questions from the quiz bank, from CompTIA's quizzes. I do gather inspiration from them. I have taken the exam. I've taken the version 1, 2, and 3. I've taken all 3 versions of the exam, passed all 3 the first time go. Number 3 is the most difficult. I got to tell you, I used to tell students, just schedule your CYSA right after your Security Plus. You'll probably pass it. That's no longer the case. Now I have to tell my students, no, you have to study for it a little bit. You're going to have to study. Well, you didn't come here to hear me talk, so let's jump into this. Question number 1. Which of the following is a primary benefit of MFA? And this is typical of CompTIA exams, where they give us an acronym, but they don't tell us what the acronym is. I got to tell you, for CYSA, I don't think I saw them spell out the acronym once. In Security Plus, it wasn't uncommon where every once in a while they would throw you a bone and they would tell you what the acronym means. I don't think I saw that even once in CYSA. So be aware of that. You need to know all the acronyms. If you thought you didn't, and you're short on it, go learn those acronyms. That is something that you would definitely need to see. All right, so let's answer this question. If I'm going too fast for you, you can always hit that pause button. You can always hit that pause button. We're going to go ahead and answer this one, though. Which of the following is the primary benefit of using MFA? Well, increases the speed of authentication. I don't think anybody who ever uses multi-factor authentication would ever say that it increased the speed of authentication, because you have to provide, either something usually it's something with something you do, something you have, or something you are, and which just slows down the process. So it definitely doesn't increase the speed. Let's see. Let's move on. Let's see. It simplifies the login process. I don't think so. Simplifying the login process would just be username and password, be done with it, and I can move on with my life. With MFA, adding additional steps on there, it does not simplify it. Matter of fact, I believe it makes it more complex. That leaves B, it reduces the need for complex passwords, and C, it provides an additional layer of security. Both of these, someone would tell you is correct. I, on the other hand, would tell you that's not correct. Reducing the need for complex passwords, that basically says that I don't really need a password, and that's not what MFA is there for. MFA, multi-factor authentication, is to provide an additional layer of security so that we have multiple layers. So that if your password is taken over, if it's discovered by a malicious actor, then we add an additional layer on there. That doesn't mean we're going to hand out our username and password. It doesn't mean that we want our passwords to be less complex. We still want complex passwords. We still want to do multiple layers. Matter of fact, a lot of companies are moving to a passwordless system, which means they don't use something you have to do 2 other forms of that multi-factor authentication. So anyway, C is going to be our answer. Remember, in cybersecurity, we never reduce complexity. Never going to happen. I don't think at any point. I'm sure somebody's going to point out that they do on one point, and they would probably be correct. But on an overall security point of view, we don't reduce complexity. Definitely not for passwords. Definitely not for passwords. All right, question number 2. You need to secure sensitive data stored on a server. Which of the following methods would be most effective? What do you think? We need to secure some sensitive data on our server. What would be the most effective method? Oh, this one's difficult. I would give this one a medium rating. Because I feel like there's multiple answers that could be right on this one. But which one's the best answer? What do you think? Well, if you need to pause that video, go ahead and do it now. Let's answer this question. Which of the following methods would be most effective? Well, it's not going to be implementing network segmentation. We need to secure sensitive data stored on a server. Network segmentation would segment the network protocols or the IP addresses. That's not really has anything to do with storing sensitive data, right? Remember, read the question. And the question is, you need to secure sensitive data stored on a server. So we're talking about storage on a server. Network segmentation has nothing to do with storage on a server. It segments the network based on IP addresses or within VLANs. And there's a number of different ways to do it. But that would not have anything to do with storage on a server. So it can't be D. Regularly updating the operating system. Regularly updating the operating system would mean patching the operating system, which is going to shore up some vulnerabilities that the server may have as the vendor comes up with the patches. But it really doesn't help us secure sensitive data stored on a server. What is this difference between doing it on that server versus an email server or a web server? And there's really nothing, right? So that's not really going to provide us an extra factor on it, if that makes any sense. And so that's going to leave us with B and A. B, using strong passwords, and A, encryption the data at rest. Well, we wanted to use both, right? Obviously, we want to use strong passwords, but we're going to use strong passwords on everything, not just on our sensitive data stored on a server, right? So we would use strong passwords on that server, but we'd also use strong passwords on clients. We'd use it on firewalls. We'd use it on switches. We'd use it on everything else. So the answer must be A, encrypting the data at rest. When you encrypt the data at rest, it makes sure that if somebody does actually get to that data, unless they're able to decrypt it, the data is useless. Now, I say that with tongue in cheek because any encryption can be broken given an amount of time, but how long is it going to take it for it to be decrypted? And that's the big thing. And there's some pretty powerful encryption algorithms out there that could last upward to 100 years. So by the time they get access to that data, the data would no longer be useful to them. So question 2 is going to be A, encrypting the data at rest. I feel like that was a easy to medium question. Probably medium. I'd go with medium on that one. Let's go to question number 3. Oh, I like logs. A security analyst is reviewing a firewall log and notices the following entry. I'll let you read that. I'm going to give you a little bit more time because of the log. What is the most likely explanation for this log entry? What do you think? All right. Don't worry if you don't know how to read this. I want you to go ahead and take I definitely want you to take a gander at it, right? I really want you to look at what the log says. If you don't know how to read this, that's okay. We're going to dissect this log when we answer it. All right, I think that's enough time. If you don't have your answer, go ahead and pause this video. But let's move through it. All right, a security analyst is reviewing the firewall log and notices the following entries. What is the most likely explanation of the entry? Well, outgoing HTTP traffic being blocked. No, there's no block, right? It's saying it's dropped the TCP of the IP addresses, but there's nothing saying it's blocking. There's no block on there, which would be typical of a firewall. It would say, hey, we blocked this. That's not on there, so it can't be A. Incoming traffic being loud. Well, if you look at the arrow in the middle, it says it's going from 192.168.1.15 on port 443 over to 203.0.113.45 on port 80. So it's going from HTTPS over to HTTP. But it's not, it's going to, there's no coming back. And so you can see that little arrow right there. We're not seeing any incoming HTTP traffic, so that's not correct. It's not B. That means it's either outgoing SYN packets being dropped due to SYN flood attack or incoming SYN packets being accepted. I feel like we gave it away with the arrow. The answer is going to be C, outgoing SYN packets being dropped due to a SYN flood attack. And so let's dissect this. All right, here we have the log right here. We have it. We have our date timestamp right there, June 29th, 1812 or 6:12 p.m. at 34 seconds. It's firewall 1 is the designator of the firewall, and we see that it's dropping a TCP from 192.168.1.15 on port 443, so HTTPS traffic. So if you know the ports, you have to know the ports for CySA. I cannot stress this enough. If you don't know the ports for CySA, you're in trouble. So memorize those ports and what protocols they go with. And then it's going to, we see that little arrow right there, 203.0.113.45 on port 80. So it's going from HTTPS over to HTTP, which is a little bit weird of itself, but we can see that. And then we see the flag, the synchronization. So if you know how TCP works, and we have that three-way handshake, SYN, ACK, SYN, SYN, or SYN, ACK, SYN, ACK, right? The three-way handshake for TCP, we notice that they're only doing the SYN, but the server is never responding back to it, right? So we're sending off the return on that. That is being hit, but it's not being noticed on the firewall, probably because we don't have it turned on, but they're never acknowledging it. And that means that we see the outgoing packets being dropped due to a SYN flood attack. And the reason it's not acknowledging it is because the firewall is preventing it. The firewall is preventing it. And so that is where we're seeing this SYN flood attack. You can see there's no acknowledgement SYN sending back on that three-way handshake. That's going to give us our SYN flood attack right there. I hope that makes sense. I hope that helped you because we see a lot of questions with logs and with outputs on CySA, more so than we did, I think, on any other CompTIA exam. So that's going to be our answer, SYN packets being dropped due to a SYN flood attack. All right, question number 4, another log entry. You are monitoring network logs and come across the following entries. I'll let you read these logs. What type of activity does this log most likely indicate? Oh man, I should have gone through and removed that denial of service. I don't like putting those in there. I apologize. I missed that one. I should have removed it, but that's okay. That's okay. I'll give you a chance to read through this. All right. What type of activity does this log most likely indicate? If you need to pause the video because you need more time, now's the time to do it. Let's break this down. Successful SSH logins. Well, no, we're not seeing that because the connection is being closed. And you can see here that I feel like they're trying to trick you because they're going through and they're saying, oh, server 1 SSHD right there. And I feel like they're definitely trying to trick you with that. But that is not what's going on. And we'll see this in a minute, right? So definitely not SSH logins, because if it was a login, we'd see the connection and then the response, and we're not seeing that. Brute force attack, well, we don't see anything about usernames and passwords. There's nothing on the log file that shows username and passwords. We're not seeing user disconnected. We're not seeing user. We're not seeing anything with passwords. None of that is prevalent in this log. And so it can't be a brute force attack, because a brute force attack requires not only a username, but a password. And we should see something in that log associated with that. So we're not seeing that either. What's the next one? Denial of service attack. I would get rid of denial of service attack, and here's why. I want you to pay attention to this, right? Here we go. We see the date to timestamp, we see the server, we see log number, and then we see connection closed by, and we see 192.168.1.20.21.22.23. If we were going to do a DOS attack, a denial of service attack, we'd see 20, 20, 20, 20 across the board. And so we normally hit one IP address. In this case, we're seeing 4 different IP addresses, which means we're seeing 4 different machines here. That must mean it's a port scanning. It's scanning for ports within this. So it's looking for open ports on different systems, and it's probably doing, here we go, just SSH. That's what we're looking for. So this attacker, whoever it is, the server, is looking on the different systems, and it's going, hey, number 20, do you have SSH open? No. What about 21? What about 22? What about 23? And so it's scanning for SSH on all these different machines. And that's how we read that. I hope that makes sense. It is a port scanner going through the process, looking specifically for SSH. All right, moving on. I hope that was educational. I hope you learned something from that. Let's move on to question number 5. The last question for the night. I feel like this one's a doozy. Let's look at it. You perform a vulnerability scan using the tool OpenVOS and receive the following output, which I'll let you read on your own. What is the primary recommendation provided by OpenVOS for this vulnerability? I feel like I miswrote this question. I shouldn't have said by OpenVOS. I should have said by a security analyst. What is the most appropriate recommended action for this vulnerability is what I should have labeled it. But that's okay. I feel like you'll forgive me. I feel like you'll forgive me on this one. What do you think? All right, let's answer this one. If you need more time, go ahead and pause the video as you read through this, as you read through the questions. Remember, we want to only spend about 30 to 45 seconds on each question. If we can't get it in 30 to 45 seconds, we need to answer something, take a best guess, flag it, and move on. We really don't want to spend more time. Now, we have more time in CySA than we did in Security Plus. We have a significant more time than we did in Security Plus, but we want to get through as many of the questions as possible, as quickly as possible. Knock out that small hanging fruit before we jump into the more complex. All right, so what do we got here? Well, let's see. What is the primary recommendation provided by OpenVOS for this vulnerability? Upgrade the operating system. Okay, let's look at this, right? So we have a high CVSS score of 7.5, and you need to be able to read this, right? So that is 7.5 out of 10. We see that we have an open port, and it's 3389 TCP. The description is the remote desk protocol service is running and may be susceptible to attack. So we're seeing this from OpenVOS. And what would be the best solution as a cybersecurity analyst against this type of action that we see? Upgrading the operating system isn't going to do it, right? Upgrading the operating system is not going to shut down the port. It's not going to do anything with the port. It's not going to affect the port. If I had the port open before, it's still going to be open, right? Because somebody on there opened it up. Usually automatedly, sometimes manually. It doesn't matter. The port's open. Upgrading the operating system is not going to do anything. C, change the port number for RDP. Changing the port number for RDP is like, it's like shutting the window, right? You have a screen there, and you're like, oh, somebody's going to break into my house through the screen, and so you shut the glass window. That doesn't stop anything. It really doesn't, right? I can still break the window with the screen. It's not going to stop me from coming in if I really wanted to. And so changing the port number for RDP, it doesn't matter. You can put RDP on any port you want. I can use Nmap and find it as a malicious actor if I wanted to. And so changing the port number is not going to do anything. That's not going to provide us any type of security. Now, here's the real problem, right? We have two viable answers here. A, disable the RDP service, which would shut down the port, right, in that service, right? I feel like if we disable RDP services, we're disabling the port, and that is a valid action. That would shut down all communication on it, and we'd be good to go. Or B, restrict access to this service and apply necessary patches. If we restrict access to the service, then that means that we're putting in some compensating controls, maybe some mitigating factors, and we're applying the necessary patches to shore up the susceptible attacks. Well, here's the thing. The better one is B. Why, you may ask? You're like, wait a second, wouldn't disabling it stop all attacks and make it more secure? It would, but you got to remember that in cybersecurity, our job is to secure systems and still allow them to function. I could secure any network out there if I unplugged it. That's not our job. That would mean, like, why do you need me? Why do you need my technical expertise to figure this out? And so the better answer is to restrict access to the service and then apply necessary patches to shore up that susceptibility, right? And so that would be the correct answer. The answer is going to be B right there. Remember, our job is to shore up vulnerabilities, not to shut down ports and services unless we need to. For instance, if I have Telnet and SSH, then it's perfectly acceptable to shut down Telnet because it can do the same function on SSH. They do the same service. But if you can't name another replacement service for RDP that's more secure, then we still need to have RDP. We still need to utilize it. And so restricting access is going to be the best answer. That's going to be the correct answer. I hope that was educational. All right, that was our last question for CySA Plus. I hope you found this to be educational. I hope that you learned something from this process. I hope you found the questions to be a little bit more difficult. If you learned something, if you thought this was great, if you thought it was okay as well, right, hit that like button for me. Go ahead and hit subscribe. And then, as always, please hit that bell icon. My name is Dr. K. We will see you next time on another study video. Thanks very much.